All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Ivan Oberon's Money Matters. This is a hot and toasty Thursday, August 14th, right? 2014. For those of you listening to this podcast 10 years from now, just know that it was a hot and muggy afternoon, right, Scott? I mean, here, even in Southern California, that's what's crazy. We've just been, humidity's up, heat is up, and I found out from my good friend Aaron recently, who's a 25-year veteran HVAC technician, that all air conditioning is dehumidification. That's
Really?
what it is. You're taking the humidity out of the air, and basically that helps bring the temperature down. So anyway, there's a little nugget of information for you.
There's your contractor tidbit for the night.
That's right. That's right. So, welcome. We're excited to be here together. We've had a very busy week. It feels like almost kind of a mind numbing type of a week, with a lot of driving, especially for Scott. We were down in Corona del Mar checking on a couple of projects that we're looking to get into, and dealing with the investors and the architects and the contractors and all those different things that it takes to get into this business and to really take your business to the next level. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that tonight. We're going to be talking about kind of how we got started, the different roads that we've traveled, and the different mistakes and blunders and failures, if you would, that we encountered along the way. Right, Scott?
Amen. Yeah, it's there's so many roads that we could say that we've messed up on, and I know we're going to touch on a few of them tonight. But learn from people who have made the mistake.
Whoa.
And don't follow their footsteps.
Right.
How's that?
And well, somehow I named you Ronika tonight.
Ronika. That's
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and skip past this page real quickly. We won't stay here very long, but we are calling tonight failing forward or failing towards success, I guess, with Scott Travis. Okay, so just ignore that. Fortunately, the people listening to the podcast won't be able to see.
You don't know how to spell my name.
But yeah, it's. I was giving you this is your new pet name for the webinar, and we want to encourage you guys, like always on this page, just to become allergic to average. Get ready to break out of the mold, break out of the norms, break out of your comfort zones, because man, we've done a lot of uncomfortable things, and we continue to do a lot of uncomfortable things and things that we don't necessarily particularly want to do, and part of it is because that's just kind of the recipe for success. And part of that is also we want to be able to lead by example, and we can't get there unless we go through those things. So real quickly, I want to tell you guys what Wikipedia defines failure as. And failure is the state or condition of not meeting a desirable or intended objective, and may be viewed as the opposite of success. Now, what do you think about that, Scott? How does that feel? Does that kick you in the gut a little bit, or does that feel good?
Well, yeah, because you call yourself a failure. That means that you're never going to succeed. I don't like that. I mean, I don't like that definition, plain and simple.
All right, so I'm gonna draft a letter to Wikipedia.
Yeah, just because you failed. I mean, well, I could see it's the opposite of success to fail, to not succeed, but through failure, learning, that's where your success comes from.
Now, I like what you said earlier. Remember, you're having that 26-hour drive home last night.
Oh God, yes.
And you were thinking, right? You were up in your head, and you were thinking about those two words, failure and success.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked kind of the revelation that you came up with in that arduous car drive home, where Ann wasn't even helping you co-pilot or anything.
No.
So tell us a little bit about that.
If you look at them, and I was just analyzing the words, just had the feeling of failure on a certain level of something that we went through, and then you try and make your failure. You look at all your failures, at least I do. I try and look at what I've done wrong and why I failed, and how that failure can become a success. And they're both 7-letter words that are so powerful in how you define them amongst yourself. I mean, if you call yourself a failure, does that mean that you're never going to succeed? If you call yourself a success, does that mean that you never failed? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So they're so closely intertwined. It's like love and hate. You know, I mean, you can go the juxtaposition on the two of them, but that's where I was at. It's just you know you need to you need to fail to succeed is
Yeah.
basically and there's I don't know very many people, if any, that haven't had any failures and have been a success. That
Right.
plain and simple.
So that takes us to our definition of failure, right? The,
Yeah.
the entrepreneur's definition of failure, because it doesn't matter what business you're in, right? It doesn't matter if you're listening to this call and you want to get into real estate investing like we do, or if you run a different type of business. I mean, you might run an awesome uh, bakery that makes cupcake milkshakes
Oh man.
in Valencia,
Yes.
to be specific.
And some that had alcohol and some that were milkshakes.
Yes, you know,
Oh my
you might
gosh.
that you're an entrepreneur and you're going to have some challenges along the way, regardless of what it is. And the reality is that failure really is the secret to success, isn't it? Because
Absolutely.
if you're not failing at something along the way, especially something that's new to you, a new area that you're going into, then that means you're not putting in the requisite effort in order to become a success. And that means that you're not really pushing the envelope. That means that you're being very, very careful. You're not taking any risks. You're not really dealing with people, right? Because if it wasn't for people, we probably wouldn't have any failures. But every single day of your life, you're dependent on your interactions with other people in order to get anything done. In order to get you to the next level, in order to get you anywhere that you want to go, you have to interact with other people. You have to put a certain level of trust in other people. You have to have a certain level of confidence in other people. You have to do all these different things. And so if you're not failing along the way, if you're not getting, stubbing your toes and occasionally breaking a couple of proverbial bones along the way, then you're not going to get to success. So, what I like to say is that a setback is nothing more than a setup for a comeback. Because we're gonna hit those setbacks, right? That's another definition of failure. It's a setback. Well, we had a setback, and maybe it goes along the lines of what you call it, right? What kind of terms you use to the self talk to get you past that quote unquote failure. One
Right.
word that I like to use a lot is challenges. This is challenging. I had this challenge. I'm dealing with this challenge. That's something that I used a lot when I was going through some of the more difficult times in my life. Not necessarily business related, but it wasn't a problem. It wasn't an issue. It was a challenge. It was a
Right.
challenge you can take on, right? You can almost feel more like you want to approach it and address it and handle it, because man, this is a challenge. Maybe we can learn something from this and have fun. So it's all about how you talk to yourself and how you position those particular failures.
Well, and that's the thing too. I know that you don't use issue, but issue is the word that I use, and it's
Sure.
just a word that you associate with something. I don't have a failure. I have an issue that I have to deal with. And how you deal with that is inevitably how it's going to work out. In the end. Huh, that didn't make any sense. The issue that the issue that you're working on, you have to find a solution, number one, and then you have to rectify what you did wrong with that issue.
Sure.
It's just like starting a new job. If I went to be an insurance salesman, I'm going to have multiple failures unless I go through a lot of schooling. And even with the schooling, I'm going to walk
Mhm.
into an office and become an insurance person and still fail because I don't have the clientele. I need to ask people for help. Same
You
with
don't
real
have the
estate
you don't
now.
have the experience. Sure.
Experience, anything. So that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's a key. This is a little bit off topic, but that's a key point there too. When you're getting into a specific field, one of the quickest ways to the next one I put up there is fail fast and fail forward.
Right.
You want to get out there and start doing stuff, and one of the critical things that you want to do is find the people who are successful in that field. Talking about sales in general, insurance sales, whatever. And you're speaking two of my primary languages there, insurance and sales, and you want to find that top salesperson. Who are the top 10% of the people in your field, and what are they doing, and how are they doing it? and go talk to those people and ask them the right questions and figure out what it is that they're doing that's different than what you're doing, and then emulate what they are doing. And then over time, you're guaranteed to get the same results. You just are, because the principles of success are kind of written, and they've been written for thousands of years. They haven't changed. You just have to find what those things are. They've been retaught and repackaged, and different speakers have presented them in their own ways with their own flair, but they're the same. So the concept and the principle really is, if you find out what those successful people are doing, 10%, the 10% in whatever industry and whatever field you're talking about, then you figure it out and emulate what they do, and you will get over time the same results. And one of the things those guys do is they have failed, and they embrace their failures, and they fail forward, and they fail fast. So I'm glad you brought that up. So we have a comment here from Wayne and Elizabeth, and they asked, how do you guys deal with a failure or setback? Sometimes it's just hard to get back after a failure. And so we're gonna talk about that tonight. I'm glad you asked that question, because we know exactly what that feels like. And Scott made a comment earlier today. We were doing the radio show. For those of you who don't know, we also have a radio show on Bloomberg Radio 5 days a week, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. You can go to c2cria.com/live during that time and listen to them, or go to our website at c2cria.com, and you can check all the podcasts, because all the radio shows are also recorded, so you can catch them at any time. But we're getting ready for the radio show today, right? And it's Thursday. And so it's just like, you typically Thirsty Thursday, for some reason, is like my favorite day of the week on the radio. Right. And it's like, I don't know what it is, man.
It's almost Friday.
It's like Thursday, and if I'm thirsty for knowledge, I have to be hungry for action, and all that kind of stuff. But today felt a little bit different. Today I was just like, man, it doesn't even feel like a Thursday. What's going on? And Scott's like, yeah, man, I know. It feels like a long weekend of like, drinking without the benefits of the fun that comes along with it, right?
Yeah, it feels like the Monday morning hangover of 2 days of drinking. It just was like, oh my gosh, you wake up, but then you look at it, it's like Thursday, it's almost Friday, then it's like, oh no, now I have the weekend to go into. It's like, which is normally relaxing, but as an entrepreneur and as what we do, a weekend is just another day.
Yeah, it's just another day. And
unless you say you're not going to do something, which
right.
You always do something.
Unless you shut your phone off and you throw it aside or do something. But I mean, even when I took the thing I love about weekends, and not to get off track here, is not because we get to unplug and get these days off and whatever. Because if something comes up, or we're in the middle of something, we're going to take care of it. But it's because the rest of my family is more stationary. The kids are here.
Right.
Sharon's here. We're you know what I mean? We're hanging out. We can do things. We went to Palm Springs, and as you know, I was in Palm Springs. We were getting on the phone. We're doing things. I always take my computer and my MiFi everywhere I go. You know what I mean? You got to be prepared. And then you have those few hour moments of respite in between. That's great. But
and that's the funny thing too is just traveling this weekend. I mean, you were in my truck, for a little while, but realistically, we had 2 computers, 2 iPads, we had 3 phones. You can never get away with it. Obviously, Ann was with me, which was great, but she's running the company.
Right.
We're trying to do our company.
Oh yeah, she was doing payroll while we were at the realtor's office.
Yeah, we're at the realtor's office. She's like, oh, I got to call in payroll. It's just nonstop. And we love, if we didn't like it and if there wasn't a benefit to it, we would have a 9 to 5. And
right.
we'd clock out at 5 o'clock, and we'd wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we'd wait for Thirsty Thursday for Friday when we don't have to do anything, and then Saturday we don't do anything.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't work in my world.
Yeah, and the real point there is that it took a while to get there, right? To build those businesses, and there was lots of failures and mistakes and frustrations along the way. And Ann's amazing. You're awesome. And so we're going to get into some specifics here And we're going to focus more specifically on our failures in the real estate investment arena. Okay, we've been doing
Okay.
this for cumulatively many years, and so we've seen some things, we've experienced some things, and I got to tell you, Scott and I got our start in this business in a very similar way. We actually both went to the Armando Montalongo bus tour. We shelled
We
out the money.
drank the juice.
Yeah,
We
we
drank the juice.
drank the juice. Got put on. Yeah, I still have a picture somewhere of me in like this crazy like orange pimp suit and whatever that you go and so I don't think I ever told you, but I got called up on stage as the dolphin. So I
Oh,
got so
Jesus.
I got the whole thing right.
You were the
And
dolphin?
right, it's
No,
crazy.
you're the sea urchin. You're the way sea
Well,
urchin.
whatever.
Way sea urchins.
Uh-huh. Well, nobody's ever called me that one before. They think, oh, maybe shark, maybe. Anyway, Pete, of course, always wants to be the dolphin.
Right.
Like if you call him anything else, he'll freak out. Um, but so we started along the way, and one of the things that they don't really tell you is the challenges that you're going to run into, and it's they don't ever tell you that it's not if, it's when something bad
Exactly.
happens to you. And there are of course varying degrees of bad, right, and varying degrees of setbacks and different things, but they don't tell you about it. They tell you all about the sugar and the rainbows and everything else that's going to be great, and then you're going to make $30,000 plus on every single deal, and yeah, it's going to take work, and you need to do different things. But so I always had that in the back of my head. I always thought, like we're especially after I had gone out and raised about $1.5 million in cash. I was like, I remember sitting there one day and I was just like, man, this is like a lot of responsibility, man. This
Yeah.
this this is this is I mean, this is a lot of money, that somebody's just giving me, and
Right.
and that I had never managed that kind of money before, and it just kind of hit me one day and thinking, okay, well, what if something happens? What's the recourse? How do we come back from something like that? Like, you got to be very, very careful. You got to do all these things and be worthy of that trust, right?
Right.
I've presented myself well. As somebody with integrity, that knows what they're doing, that wants to do well by everybody, that always, every time you go into a deal, make sure that it's a win-win for every single person involved in that deal. And if you cannot set up a deal that everybody wins, you should walk away from it. Okay, that's going to be my first little insight of information. If there's anybody in your deal that isn't going to win, you want to walk away from that deal, because you don't want to be known as somebody who puts together deals that are skewed in the wrong direction for somebody. Okay, so here's some specifics, because I always had that in the back of my head. It's like, everybody thinks like it can't happen to me, just like everything else. It can't happen to me. This won't
It
happen.
will.
This won't happen to me. Oh my gosh, that guy lost all this money and all these different things. Like, man, I'm glad that wasn't me. Well, yeah, you're glad it's not you. I'm here to tell you, not to scare you, but to impress upon you that when you're getting into business for yourself and you're getting into real estate, you're starting to play with the big boys now. And there's some specific things, and there are rules in this game that people of integrity and moral character, like I believe Scott and myself are, and I know a lot of you guys are as well. If not all of you, I guess I should probably just say all of you.
You
And
should.
you know what I mean. But there are people out there in this world that get into this business to specifically to take advantage of other people, and to
Oh,
work the system, and to move from one thing to the next, and we'll share some of those things. But we're going to get into the first specific, and I'm gonna let Scott take it from here. Take our first challenge or failure or mistake that has been made in regards to contractor add-ons. So what can you
yeah.
tell us about that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if any or most of you know, but I am a contractor. So, I mean, I'm a landscape swimming pool contractor. So just because it says landscape swimming pool, I
Yeah,
still
with
take the
with
test.
your own like theme music. I see that.
I know her phone's on. I'm sorry. Um, it's not mine. Um, the contractor add-ons, and it was my first project, and You think when you're dealing with a contract, there's kind of a contractor talk, and for those of you who aren't
Right.
contractors, it's just like a insurance or a bakery. You guys have your own lingo and everything
Sure.
else. So it comes down to the deal, sign the contract, get everything on the dotted line, and then all of a sudden he decides that he wants to put another bedroom in because it's going to look better for the house
Hmm.
without authorization, without anything else. He talked about it, never gave me a change order, never gave me anything else. So we said, okay, when did we agree to this? I said, I'm not paying for it. He said, well, you'll see it in the end. I'm like, okay, no problem. I'm still clear because I don't have anything in writing saying that I have to pay for it.
Right.
Then he decides to change out the windows. It's like we had one window to change out. Now he's replacing 11 windows.
Oh man.
Didn't have it in the contract. So what I had also is I had a friend of mine who's a general contractor, a GC, and he was in the deal with me. I brought him in the deal with me.
Hmm.
So he finally would stop talking to me, and he went to talk to my GC, my buddy that had half the money into the deal, and he goes, I don't know who you're dealing with, but you're dealing with two contractors. We're not paying for it,
Yeah.
plain and simple. So here's the thing with people that just so happens it's lucky for us that we knew what was going on. New people coming in, hey, if you don't know the rules and regulations, you don't have to pay for that stuff, and you can get tied up into litigation and everything else. We had everything in order, but you've got to watch your contractors and just their, their, I don't want to say their discrepancy, but they're just lackadaisical with your money. You
Yeah.
can't let that happen.
Okay. All right. So, so to me, that sounds more like a warning, not like a failure that you had specifically, because
Oh, jeez.
it sounds to me that sounded like it worked out pretty well for you. Okay. So let me give you an example
Okay.
of my own, because
There goes.
I just so happen to I mean again it's not a mistake that I made or a failure that I had specifically, but it's something that happened to me. And one of the challenges of rehabbing remotely. This is when I was already in the Midwest, and I'm into the project, and all of a sudden I get a change order for what the heck was it? One of them was like a something with, having to do with a tree, and they had some electrical thing, and they had some other thing that they had to excavate. And so I get this change order in this bill, right? Because the way it works, for those of you who don't know, you have your contract, you have your scope of work and everything within that scope of work, and if something comes up, the process is supposed to be the contractor identifies it, takes
Right.
pictures of it, documents it, sends you, prices it out, sends you a change order and a request saying this is what it is for your approval, right? And what Scott's saying is when you don't go through that process and you don't approve that, then you are not legally obligated to pay for it. So
Correct.
what ended up happening was that change order showed up a month after they had already
You
done
did it.
all the work. So they did all the work already, and they were expecting to get paid. And yes, you can stiff arm them, and you're not legally responsible for paying for that stuff. But guess what they can do? They can walk right off your job, and they can
Yeah.
stop working. And now you're left holding the bag, right? And what do you
Right.
do? And especially if you're remote, what do? You can't just go and start finding other people, and you're working with this other guy and whatever. So it's kind of one of those things. And what I ended up doing, that was a mistake of sorts, I suppose. But what I ended up doing is I just told them to throw it at the back end of the deal. We'll use the money that you already have to pay for that change order, and then at the
Right.
end, we'll square up, kind of a thing. Because I'm not going to cut you an extra check for this $4,900 that
Right.
that you didn't get pre-authorization for right now. So I ended up having to pay for it anyway.
Yeah. Well, see, ours, the contractor came back and said he's just going to put a lien on it and tie it up in escrow. Well, luckily, luckily we knew the process of the whole thing, and we were just going after his contractor's license. So,
Mm,
so contract there's the underlying thing. The contractor to contractor, we know how to get it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Whereas other people don't, and it's like on that change order, you just say, okay, say you're going to pay it, and then just You just don't. I mean, that's just plain simple. You pay him the $4,900 and then you back it out of his final payment. Just don't tell him anything. That's
Hmm.
all. That's the way I would handle it. But it's the people that are coming from the 9 to 5 job that come into this.
Yeah.
It's not if it's going to happen. It's when it's going to happen, because it will happen to you.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, and the contractor right there is telling you that a contractor is oftentimes going to look for ways to squeeze little things in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. But Scott would never do that.
No, and there's here. That's a great segue. After 23 years, there's never been a contractor complaint. I mean, I've leaned a lot of people for not non-payment on my end. They didn't come through on their end, but it's a relationship, and I say it on my webinars too. It's the relationships you build with people. You have to keep that open.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. I agree. I agree, and hope that the relationship is good on both ends, right?
You
And
have
and and that leads us to my next point. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw this one out there right now because it is about relationships, and this is the, just so everybody knows, this is the number one thing that hurt me the worst ever in this business. Okay, so this is like this is the one that you want to listen to if you care to listen, because this is for me, this is what has caused me the most pain in my investment career. Trusting too blindly. Trusting somebody too blindly. Now, how does this happen? Well, we at Coast to Coast RIA, we expand on everything about relationships and about your network, and the reason that we created all these clubs nationwide and everything is to give people a level of comfort and a level of trust. If they're in one market and they want to go invest in a different market, if you're a member of Coast to Coast RIA, well, call this other member who's also part of Coast to Coast RIA. So there's almost kind of like a band of brothers, right? You don't know anybody, but they're part of the network. So you would think that they have a little bit more responsibility to treat everybody else well, right? So this is what happened to me, and this is when I wanted to break out of California. There's a guy here, won't mention his name, who lives in San Diego and invests in the Midwest, where I wanted to get into. And I started talking to him. We had some meetings. We felt each other out. We both felt that we were good people and that we weren't going to waste anybody's time, that we can perform and all these different things. And so I asked for a referral because he was doing all of his investing. He still doesn't invest in California. He was doing all his flips and everything in Indiana and the Midwest. And so, can you introduce me to your teams? May let's do some joint ventures together and do all these different things. So what ended up happening is he introduced me to this guy. Later on, I come to find out that it wasn't. I thought all along that this was his main guy. Come to find out, it was like he was doing a deal with this guy. So he didn't even turn me on to like his real people.
He didn't give you the A team. He gave you his C team.
Yeah, he didn't give me the A team. He gave me this new guy.
Right.
Who talked a good talk and whatever. And so it was kind of guarded at first, and yeah, it's okay, I'm working with him and this and that. And eventually we decided, a joint venture thing doesn't make a lot of sense from a profit standpoint. Here you go, I'll just green light you to work with my guy directly, and you can go from there. I was like, okay, cool. So because of that referral from a guy that I knew personally, somebody who I knew was successful, and Pete knew him and everything else also, I trusted that this guy that he turned me on to was gonna be professional, was gonna be honest, had his stuff together, had everything lined up. Okay, so when different things came up, and when it came time to send money over into his escrow account, when it came, I didn't question really any of that stuff. When he didn't want me having any real communication with any of his contractors or any of his people or anything else, I didn't question it too much because I was like, you know what, that's cool. He's like my one-stop shop, right?
You trusted the guy. You trusted the guy blindly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're taking care of all the accounting. Sweet. I don't need to do that. You're gonna run the project. Sweet. I don't need to do that. You're gonna you're getting the contractors. You're finding the properties for me. You're doing all these different things. Okay, I'm sounds pretty good.
Sometimes this is a brand new webinar.
Uh-oh.
What is going on here? Do we have a hack in our midst?
I think Johnny's back.
So anyway, so because of that, I didn't question certain things, and then then you tie emotion into it. Well, guess what? Everything was peachy. I was getting property after property after property after property under contract. Money talks. It was like, I mean, my offers were strong, man. Like 3-day close,
Wow.
no contingencies, because I had all the cash, right?
Slam it.
I knew I could pull the trigger at any time. So boom, 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 boom. Everything's going golden. Well, the morning that my father-in-law passes away, I get a call from this guy telling me how the contractors are they were jumping the meters. They weren't waiting for the city to come in and tag the meters, and so now they put a stop work order, and the city's open an investigation, because they were stealing utilities and all these different things, right? And I'm just like, what? You got to be kidding me! And that was the snowball that grew to perpetual and tremendous proportions. It never stopped. From that one day, it never stopped. There was another issue after another issue after another issue after another issue after another issue, and I can't even tell you what, as far as time and money and energy and frustration and everything, that whole thing costed me. And not getting into any more details, I didn't question enough things along that process.
Right.
Once the first thing went wrong, and then we started going down the process of other things going wrong, and then getting change orders and all these different things, I didn't question it enough, and I didn't get on a plane like I should have until it was already too late, and then I had to go like with my gun and my bat, and I don't even have them, but you know what I mean. Like
I could go with you.
I wanted to leave people in basements because. When I was there,
I know the feeling. Exactly. Know that
so
feeling. Yes.
so verify if something, and here's the other thing. Because of the referral, because I trusted this guy too blindly, I ignored my gut feeling, and I ignored the fact that there was other people in that market that warned me about certain things, and I was just like, no, because this guy had a silver tongue. He had a silver tongue, and he was a referral of someone who I thought I could trust.
Right. I call that a golden throat. Everything that comes out of his mouth is just beautiful. It's just that he can just golden throat his way through it. Everything is just, sugar and spice. That's just.
He did.
Yeah.
And here's the end of the story. Turns out that he went through like 3 different contractors. And then one of the contractors reached out to me and was like, "Hey, are you so and so? Do you own these properties? Like, I think you should know the real story." And then that's when everything just kind of all the pieces fell apart. And then I found a guy that had worked with this guy that was suing him, ended up winning. Then I found 3 other people that were suing him, and we ended up suing him. Not necessarily because I wanted to, because I don't like to do that, but my investors wanted to sue him. And so, we got involved in a lawsuit there, and then all this stuff came up. Like he'd never sold a property because his wife was also the realtor who was supposed to list the properties, right? So it turned out that they never sold a property. He didn't have a general contractor's license like he said he did in the state of Indiana. He had one from somewhere else a long time ago. And so anyway, so all these different things came. I was just like, "Are you gotta be kidding me?" Like how? And that's his profession, right? He just goes out there and takes advantage of people. And then I found same story. And so anyway, that's my biggest pile of dirty laundry, and that's that one little thing.
Jeez.
Trust too blindly.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I mean.
So be careful with your referrals, okay?
Yeah, I have one, but it went to not, and I think it can relate to it because you hit on it. You what? The
gremlin.
Thing.
There's a gremlin in our midst somewhere.
So the one that I have on trusting too blindly is you can't this is going to be a blanket statement, I know. You can't trust anybody until you've dealt with them and worked with them. I mean, and that's really tough to say, because I had a realtor. Now this is kind of weird and off what we're going with, but I had a realtor that found out that I bought the property, put money into escrow, had the contract signed. She realized what the property was worth and what I was buying it for, took my name off of it and put her name on it.
Oh, no.
And that's the lawsuit that that's the lawsuit I'm dealing with in Texas.
That's the thing you're going through?
Yes. So when I say I'm in bed with some pretty nasty people on some deals that I have, and the problem with this is sometimes you can't get out of it until it's over. So you have to like that. How long did it take you to get out of that situation? You had to stay in it for a while until it was over, and that's sometimes what happens on these bad deals. You have to stay in it, and it always haunts you, whether it's a week, a month, a year, 2 years.
Let me scare some people right now. About 2 years.
Oh,
And
19 months right now.
And there's still a lawsuit going on.
Well, 19 months, 4 attorneys, and a lot of money. That's where I'm at. So we're both in this, and you know where I'm talking about. So, yeah, guys, it's a great business. Align yourself with wonderful people, and be the person that you want to deal with. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and that's the thing, right? That's part of the tough thing. And we have a couple of questions and comments here that we'll get to in just a second. And that's part of the tough thing, right? Of being a person of moral integrity and following with who you are, and struggling with that feeling of, man, it's like dog eat dog sometimes. Like, do I want to become a dog? And you have to fight yourself from becoming that dog, because you don't ever want to go down that path. You don't want to become that person. And so you have to, you have to
push it
down. And for those of us who have faith, I think that helps us tremendously when we run into situations like that. And man, but you do want to become that person. You want to be that person no matter what, even if there's
push it down or push it up.
A whole bunch. Well, push through it. You push through it. Push it out. Get it out. You get it out. You move on. You move past, and that's the difference between a champion and somebody who doesn't get anywhere. Is like you said. You've heard it said many times before. It's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get up. And all you got to do is get up one more time than you get knocked down, and you'll make it. You'll succeed. You'll get to where you want to go. Sometimes it's just tough to get up. Sometimes you're crawling for a while before you get back up.
And it affects everybody. That's the thing that new people don't understand. It affects your home life. I mean, it affects everything. And it is really hard as an entrepreneur in whatever you do to compartmentalize your business, whatever business that is, as a self-employed person or an entrepreneur. It's very hard to put things into boxes. A 9-to-5 job, you get done with your job, you're done. Investing in real estate, it's very hard, because when that phone call comes at 6 o'clock on a Friday and you've got an offer in and it's a counter offer, now you want to answer it right away. Or if your contractor calls you on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock at night and says, I have a water main that's leaking, I need to get it fixed. I mean, those are things that have to get done.
Yeah.
It envelops your whole life.
Right. So our good friend Mike had a comment, said, lead shoes and take them to the ocean.
I say 42-cent piece of lead.
So OMG, that's scary. How do you prevent these things from happening to you? So let's address that. I think that the best way that you can prevent something like that from happening to you is two things, and I'll let Scott say what he wants to say about it. Two things. Two of the most important things is, one, listen to your gut. Don't ignore your gut at the sake of just being one of those get her done people. we're just gonna get it done. We're just gonna put the blinders on. Listen to your gut. You hold all your emotion. I mean, your conscience, your intuition. That's why they say that the stomach is the seat of all emotion. It's like everything goes there. There's a reason why you're having that feeling, and a lot of times we ignore it and listen to other people. Okay, because if I had listened to my gut, if I had listened to other people, I would have stopped a lot sooner. So would the damage have still been there? Yes, the damage would have still been there, but I would have been able to mitigate that damage and not let it go as far as it went. And now it's I mean, yeah, you can't I mean, I can put a cost on it. I'm not going to say it right now, but it's a pretty big number, and that could have been mitigated had I stopped sooner and had I listened to my gut. Now I know. Scott and I made a pact because we've both been down the road, and we made a pact. So like, look, man, any deals that we look at, any as we're going through them, when we have them under contract, when we have all these different things, if either of us ever get that feeling, we'll pull out. No questions asked. Just be honest, be truthful, and we'll pull out. And it might suck. It will. Not might. It will. It always sucks. It always sucks to pull out. It always sucks to back out. It always sucks to get down the road and realize that what, it's not going to work for this reason or the other reason. That's never fun. But it's always better to deal with those emotions and those feelings and that quote unquote failure now than it is 8-10 months from now and now you lost $2 million. So anyway, that's my take on that.
No, exactly, and you had it. We did for backup for Ivan. We made a pact between each other because we have both had that feeling, and we looked at each other straight in the face. It's like, if you say that you don't feel good about it or something, then I'm good with that. I mean, because there is an internal. There's always signs, and if you look back on Ivan, I'm sure when you look back on your thing, there was people that warned you, like you said.
Yeah,
there was warning signs. In my situation, the same thing. Hey, this person isn't as trustworthy. This person has ripped this person off, and and you're like, yeah, but they're not going to do it to me. It's this is different. It's not different.
This is my deal.
If this person is an idiot, lying, cheating thief, this person does not change overnight because you look good or because you wear the right cologne. It's right. Not. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. Yeah, my cologne's awesome.
He's not gonna do it.
What's that?
At this time.
Are you there?
I don't know. He's just fooling around. So for those of you who don't know, that's we have a special guest with us.
It's almost like a ghost guest.
Like not like special guest like Scott's my special guest, like special guest. There was a question that we can either spend a little bit of time right now. Scott, I'll defer this one to you. There was a question that says, how do you find a contractor? What do you do? What's the process? Like, how do you know that they're any good?
I mean, we can just, I'll hit on it shortly or on a compact level. The first thing that we did when we went to Atlanta, the first thing I did as I went on to, you've got a computer screen that you're looking at right now. There's a wealth of knowledge and information from that thing. First thing I did is I went on and pulled up the requirements for a contractor. Because in different states, there's different requirements. Some don't, up to $2,500 if you're doing anything, you can do it as a homeowner. You are, as the investor, are the homeowner. So you don't have to have a licensed contractor to do some things. So I did some research on the internet, and I also went by people's recommendations. The one that we have in Atlanta just so happened to come from a recommendation from someone that he uses him a lot. Well, Ivan, as well as I do, I hammered that guy, in our seminar, and asked him straight out questions. I asked him what his bid limit was. I asked him to show me his contractor's license. I said, if this happens, what's going to happen? If you go past your timeline, you have to deal with it.
No, he was in the hot seat. He was in the fire. Yeah. He was under fire.
You have to keep him that way because I'll tell you what, the contractor is going in to bid a job, and that job is his payment. So
Mm-hmm.
he understands that. You understand that. Now, is this the person that you want to pay $50,000 to do that job? If he
Yeah.
can't answer some questions that are hard hitting from the
Yeah.
very beginning, when it comes down to him coming to you and telling you what you need to do, you have to have a backstop. You have to be able to tell him no.
Yeah.
That's just it. I mean, that's. Go
So
ahead.
I'll add to that. It's absolutely right. Completely agree. Of course I do. And so what I would suggest, for somebody, a layperson who's not going to know that, I would suggest that you get with somebody like Scott, somebody that maybe that personally, that you maybe that you trust. Maybe Scott would be willing to do something for you guys for 90, $150 an hour, something like that. Maybe $300 an hour. I don't know. Maybe he's going rates like
I, I have.
$1,000 an hour. I don't know. But
I have no problem with talking
but
to
just coming up with kind of like a list of questions, right? Like, so you put this guy in the hot seat. Like, there's some very specific things that you want answered, and if they can't answer them, or if they don't answer them satisfactorily, you move on to the next guy, because you don't want to make the wrong choice. You don't want to jump down the road, and maybe we can maybe put together a training or something like that, because it's not just the
That'd be
questions.
great.
The questions that you ask is, what do you do with the answers that you get, and how are those answers? How do you feel those answers? What's the right answer? What's not the right answer, etc. So that would be, I think a very good thing. Um,
You can
let's
go on. You can go on the contractors board in that specific state, see if there's any complaints. Sometimes you have to understand too. A contractor complaint. If anybody can make a complaint on a contractor, that doesn't mean that the complaint is valid. You have to check it out. You know what I mean? So
right.
if someone could have easily put a complaint on me that I never finished a job, blah blah blah. Well, the contractor can come back in there and justify why he did not finish the job, or why there was an issue. So you will see the complaint and the rebuttal, the answer from the contractor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know in every state if they do that, but I know that there are certain states that do that. And the thing about it is your best thing is going to people who have used the person before. That's a plain and simple one. This is going to sound really weird, but Angie's List. I mean, I was on Angie's List. My wife is on Angie's List, and they keep it pretty tight.
Now that's you just answered a question, because that was kind of a comment. Like, what do you think about Angie's List for contractors?
Yeah, I think that they're
as
good.
far as what's out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that they pay to be on there. They're paying for the advertising, but you also, I think that the recourse on something smaller rather than the contractors board, I think an Angie's List in your area is going to be more specific for your area. So I think that's a great idea. And the people that are usually on Angie's List, they want to do the work. They're looking to the work. They haven't. This may sound bad, but they probably haven't been in business for 30 years, and they have a reputation. You know what I mean? So they're building their business up. So sometimes it's better to do it that way.
Okay. There was a comment by Wayne and Elizabeth, that they couldn't hear us. Let's just double check real quick. Can you guys all still hear us okay? I think so, because some of you guys are still responding or still commenting, but I just want to make sure that everything's going well.
Maybe you couldn't hear Johnny.
So, Johnny, yeah. So somebody said Johnny's back. All right, yeah. So they can hear us. All right, moving on.
Okay, good.
So hopefully we covered that sufficiently. If not, just make sure you guys write down any questions you guys have. We will get to them at the end. We might even, if you feel brave, unmute you so you can be live and ask your question instead of typing it in. Okay. Next one. I thought this one was interesting. The death disclosure.
Oh man.
So so what, Scott? I mean, like rodents. I mean, there's been some something happened there. Like,
no, this
is
this
what's in the disclosures, man?
Well, this one really caught me off guard. I purchased 2 properties across the street from each other, and we were finishing up one of the properties. And I was getting this weird feeling. It had a pool in it, so we were redoing the pool and everything else. And every time I got into the pool, and it's going to sound weird, and I'm going to, the psychics and all this other stuff, but I just felt really just an uneasy feeling whenever we were working on the pool. Whenever I walked into the house.
Well,
And
intuition is real, bro. Okay, you don't have to
believe
go all palm reader psychic stuff. It's just intuition. Yeah, you sometimes you feel things.
I totally do. So I was working on the pool and just, man, I'd get out of breath. And it was just one of those weirdest things. So I was working on the house across the street, and my contractor called me back to the other house. He said, hey, we got some people walking through the house, and I like to show the houses under construction. I have no problem with pre-selling the house. Mm-hmm. So my houses are open during construction. If you don't mind walking on drywall mud and junk, I have no problem with that. So they're coming in there, and they brought their family. And they were there for a long time, and they kept looking outside, and I was like, it's kind of weird, in the backyard. And so I kind of hit him up, and I said, so do you have interest? She goes, no, but we have our family that wants to move back, but and we had heard some stuff about this house, and I'm like, oh, cool. So did you hear that we're remodeling it and everything else? She goes, no. She goes, there was an accident that happened here, and I'm like, oh, really? I go, so what was the issue? And she goes, well, the grandmother was watching the baby, and the baby drowned in the pool.
Oh my gosh.
And I go, are you kidding me? And it was one of those things. There was just a stigma. So everybody in the so that's one that you don't really want the neighbors to know everything about the house. You know what I mean? And in Nevada, you don't have to do a death disclosure.
Oh.
When we bought it, plus we bought it as an REO, so they didn't disclose all that. Now, me being a reseller, I'm removed from it. I don't have to disclose it, so I'm in the clear. But everyone around the house knew what was, that lived in the neighborhood.
All the neighbors and stuff, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's another thing. You'll find out everything about the house from the neighbors. If you ever want to know what's wrong with the house or any issues, or if they were growing pot, or if they, it was a brothel or whatever you want, you just ask the neighbors what's going on. Well, yeah, I live in Vegas. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's take it even one step further, Scott. Like
it wasn't one step further.
I forgot. Yeah, you live in Vegas. Never mind. That's like kids play to you.
Yeah. So that was probably one of the weirdest things that I had on a house. I sold the house. The house, some people from out of state bought it. There was no big deal, but it was just that weird intuition feeling. That's go with that. Go with your gut, like you were just saying. You have a gut feeling.
Okay. So again, you ended up buying it, and you ended up selling it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still waiting for where the like mistake or maybe even the warning comes in. So if somebody, is the moral of the story here for people to always ask for that disclosure?
I think
or what?
A lot of states don't require it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's the thing that you need to know is, I know California, you have to disclose it.
Yeah.
I found out that Nevada, you didn't have to. Now, there could have been a big issue if I had to disclose it. So it would have been better for me to know what was going on. I would have liked to know that there was a death in the house, just to prepare for it. So I guess it was one of the things I think.
So that was in Nevada. It was near Vegas.
Right.
So you clearly kept the pool.
Oh gosh, yeah. yeah.
Okay.
The pool was done. I mean, I've looked at houses in California that there was death in the house, and they did disclose it, and I didn't buy them just because of the stigma and what was going on. So.
Yeah. So that's really the moral right there, is that you may want to, before you buy a house, you may want to find that out, because it may be more difficult for you to sell it after the fact. You might not care because you're just specking out the home. You're not going to live in it. So it's a good point. I've never gotten one. I've never bothered with it. But I'm sure there's been some stuff. And there was actually a story. Oh, man, maybe I shouldn't even tell it. I don't want to bring people down. It's like I wasn't even expecting that, man. You just kind of like brought the tempo all the way down here. But there was a well, for me it's just like
okay.
There was I was looking at a probate deal. There was a house. A buddy of mine works for Edison. He's the planner that I told you about, and there's a house down the street from him. He's been looking to buy a house. He's been renting a house for years, looking to buy a house. Well, he sees this house down the street that's burnt up. There was a fire in the house. I mean, the fire was, I mean, it went through the whole thing. It burnt, you know, there was a hole in the roof where the firefighters came through. Like every single room was blacked out. You can see the garage that was sitting there for a long, long time. You know, I did what I could to contact the family and do all these, talk to the neighbors, like what happened, you know, has there been any interest, all this kind of stuff. And it was the same type of thing. You know, there was a fire and there was one person in there and they perished, and somebody came in there. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it, but somebody got it. Somebody was good at probates. They got it and made it into a beautiful home. My friend was all disappointed, and you know, I was running the numbers. I was excited. I was like, all right, well, this is you know, it wasn't a tear down, but it was still, it's gonna be a big job. So if we can get it for 100, you know,
I love firehouses.
put 250 into it, and I mean, now we're talking Southern California, so it's you know, so but the funniest thing is that we've been doing all these properties and all these projects. Like when I started, I know we're getting a little bit off topic and going into the weeds here a little bit, but this is all part of the business, so I think you guys will get something out of it. You know, when I started buying, you know, 230, 400, 230, 240, $300,000 properties, putting $40,000 to $50,000 into them, flipping them. Then decided to go and start buying, you know, 25, 30 to $50,000 properties, putting, you know, 45, 60, 70, $80,000 into them in some cases, and flipping them. That was a big rate of return, right? Those seem like big numbers. Now we're buying them for like $2 million and putting over $1 million into them and selling them for over $4 million. It's just the perception just changes, right? Because now, not $230,000, $430,000 to sell a house in Southern California, like doesn't even seem like anything anymore.
Well, what's funny is we're running the numbers like, yeah, $170,000 for excavation. That's no big deal.
No problem.
Like, that's good. And excavation, for all of you know, is just digging dirt. That's all. We're paying almost $200,000 for them to dig dirt. That's it. Nothing else.
Crazy. So that's kind of like, to get you guys. It does become more scary in certain ways, right? Because it's the unknown, and it's more zeros, and there are more things involved. I mean, we're meeting with architects and we're going through that stuff. Like you don't meet with an architect on a, you know, even on a $400,000 resale house. You just don't. You meet with your contractor. This is what it is. This is the budget. This is what we want. You know, send me the finishes. You know, in many cases we can have our own spec, and these are the finishes that we want, whatever. But it's just, you know, you got to start somewhere, but just know that you can always scale from there.
And the thing about that is the bigger you go, the more detail either your investor or yourself is going to have to get to. I mean, we spent an hour and a half on just the architect's bid. Remember this afternoon?
Yeah.
We're Skyping each other. We're looking at our computers. We're going line item for line item on every charge, and we're finding out that, you know, there's a double charge here, or that doesn't add up. You know what I mean? So I think that
you know what? He thinks a lot of himself here.
Or $36,000 just so he can go out and make sure that the plan, that the site is okay for the inspector to come out and look at it.
I know. I think we might be on the wrong side of things.
We don't need him to stand there to make sure the inspector does his job. We've already paid for that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, yeah. I mean, his fee was it was $90-some thousand. It was ridiculous. So the bigger you go, and it doesn't matter. I shouldn't say that. You just have to check everything line item for line item. That's it. And the bigger the number, there's going to be more zeros after it, and there's going to be more line items.
That's a good point, and here we'll bring it back to what we're talking about here. Bring it back to contractors, you know, the whole line item by line item thing. I'm working with a crew right now that I like them, and the only reason I'm working with them right now is because they've helped me clean up some of that mess that we talked about earlier. And you know, it's a mess that here's part of the problem with those messes that you get into. Okay, sometimes, like I said, it's taking like 2 years. Scott and I talked earlier, like, you know, what's our hourly rate right now? And when we get off this webinar, I'm gonna show you this thing I have written on my other little computer screen wall thing in my desk, because that's what winners do. Okay, that's what successful people do. They think about, how much am I getting paid per hour? Is what I'm doing right now paying me the kind of money I want to earn per hour? Okay, that's one of the ways that you guys can really figure out how you're making the best use of your time. Figure out what that per dollar or per hour dollar amount is. Forget about what you make per year. Forget about what you make per month. What are you making per hour? And then I guarantee you, this is a success principle right now that we're talking about. You will start to choose and be more selective about how you spend your time, because every single hour is valuable to you. What are you making per hour? Is what you're doing right now paying you the kind of money that you want to earn? And then figure out what that is. You can start off with whatever your annual amount is, and then you divide that. But what is it, like 2,000 hours per year that the average person works? 2,200 hours. You divide that into that, and then that'll give you your hourly rate. That's what you want to make. And then whatever you're doing, paying you that. So, these properties that I had to fix and come in and do all these different things, spent, I mean, over a year doing this kind of stuff and working and still managing contractors, still babysitting them while making $0.
Zero.
All I'm doing is was hoping to get the thing done, get them rented or get them sold, get some of the money back. That's it. There wasn't any profit in those things. So that's sometimes what you guys run into is just where's the fires? How do you put them out? But the point I'm trying to make here is that the guys that I'm working with right now refuse to give me a clearly line by line itemized bid. Okay, and I know Scott's gonna starts twitching right now, because so their only saving grace is that they've done good work and that they've been on they've done what they said they were going to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I would not do that. I would not want to work with somebody like that cannot give me an itemized bid. Their reason is we use a lot of different people, because they're a GC. We use a lot of different people, and so we reserve the whatever to shift and to move and this and that to make sure that we give you the best price. And the job's going to be this much, and they'll give me like line item for we're going to do this, 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 and this. It's going to cost this much. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And it's going to cost this much. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And it's going to cost this much. All right. Well, what about the this, 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 and this? Why can't you break that out? So they refuse to do that. So it's like, if I want to work with them,
well,
I have to.
And I'll tell you, from a contractor, that's where the juice is. I mean, you have to understand. You can break out a certain amount, but once you start breaking it out to, and this has happened to me. Well, I can get that cheaper off of online. It's like, well, that's great. I'm not going to install it if you get it online, because number one, I'm warranting it. Number two, if it breaks down, I'm coming back. Because what inevitably is going to happen is something that you picked out or that you decided that was too much to pay me to do. You're going to get it. You're going to want me to do it, install it, make sure that it works. If it doesn't work, then I'm going to be the one that's responsible for it. And
right.
that's a lot of times why it happens. And I'm just saying it from the other side, because on all my contracts and all my wife's contracts, we'll break out a bulk price in a certain area. And if we were to break out every sprinkler head, or if I were to break out every jet fitting, it would be 80, like we talked about this yesterday. It'd be 82-page, markout sheet.
Yeah.
And that's just, it just does. Sometimes you have to pick your battles with the contractor, and if you're comfortable with it, and it meets your needs and it meets your budget, then be okay with it. But if you've got that bad feeling about it, go with your feeling. That's the 2 cents I can say of that.
Sure. And let me add one little thing here, and this is me putting my insurance hat on, because from a workers comp standpoint and from a IRS standpoint, you don't ever want to be buying the materials for your contractor directly, like I can get this online cheaper type of thing, or I can get this over here cheaper type of thing. You don't ever want to buy the materials personally and give them to your contractor. Because what you've just done is you have made yourself an employer subject to workers' comp and tax laws. So so don't do that. I know there's a lot of people that are out there doing that. Don't do it. Okay. I know even the gurus will say, oh, well, you can do this, you can do that, you can hire this handyman, and you can just buy this. No, they're telling you wrong. Okay, you can get get into serious trouble for doing that. It's always better to say these are the things that we want, that we're going to want. Here's your draw. Go buy them.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Oh, well, I guess we kind of already talked about this, huh? We kind of wrapped that into trusting too blindly. We got a little excited about that.
They're both the same.
All right, so we'll move right past that one into break-ins and theft. So, what are some things? I'll start this one off, and this is another key factor to having the right type of insurance. And we're not gonna. This webinar isn't about insurance, but as you guys may or may not know, that is still something that I do. I shifted my focus now into working with a company that handles specifically and exclusively the insurance needs for real estate investors, whether you are rehabbers or cash flow investors, landlords, apartment building landlords, note investors, whatever you got going on, we can help you with the right product, the right price. And one of those coverages, of course, is theft. And most insurance policies out there for vacants and renovations that you'll find through your, Foremost and American Moderns, and sometimes even Farmers, they're inadequate policies. Okay, they have a lot of exclusions, and oftentimes they're very, very costly as well. So, break-ins and thefts. You mentioned earlier how you bought two houses that were across the street from each other. Well, about three houses that were on the same street, and two of them were right next to each other. And what ended up happening is, again, this was a learning lesson for me by not really overseeing what was going on personally, trusting somebody else to oversee it. Well, somebody made the decision that it was a good idea to install the exterior AC units on the property towards the beginning of the construction. So they did all this thing, they did this, and they whatever they did the electrical, and so pretty much when they have the electrical up, they installed the AC units. And yes, they used cages. They put the cages on the AC units. But guess what happened a month later? I'm getting a call. Both AC units are gone. Both AC units are gone. I don't know what happened. Who knows? Like they must have, they had to spend some time there. The cages are gone and everything. So you got the theft. So the learning lesson from that, and what you want to make sure you're doing is you always budget for your AC units and make sure that they're in there, but you don't ever install them until you have a buyer for your property. You get a buyer from your property, you work it out in escrow that the unit, and this is the safest way to do it, the unit does not get installed until immediately after escrow closes. Because now you install that unit and now the homeowner owns that unit. You no longer own it, you're no longer responsible for it. Now sometimes the escrow will give you some pushback, and they want to install before the close. So you do your very best to schedule it as close to the last day as you can to the closing. So it's closing tomorrow. We install it today. They inspect. They close the next day. You're good to go. You reduce your risk.
Yeah, on my properties, I include an allowance for appliance packages. I hate putting appliances in, so I'll give them an allowance right from the beginning. Now, if it's an FHA buyer, they have to have appliances in before at closing, for the inspection for the loan.
Right.
So if you want white, if you want black, you want stainless steel, you get $2,500, depending on the house, obviously. But it's normally $2,500 that you get at closing to go pick out your brand new refrigerator, oven, microwave, whatever you can afford. Or if you have all those things, then go buy yourself a washer and dryer. Or if you have all that stuff, put the $2,500 in your pocket. I just don't want someone to break a window, break a door, ruin the paint, scuff up my cabinets, and then destroy my hardwood or tile, taking everything out. That's it.
It's true, and it's a good, and I struggle with that myself. See, Scott does it that way, and I've always installed appliances just because I feel that they look better for the listing. I think it attracts people more. I think that it creates more of an emotional connection, especially to the wife. When she sees nice appliances in the kitchen. Uh, with that said, I had a house that they broke in, and they stole the refrigerator, and they had cut the lines for the hot water heater. They had uh, the oven, and they had the dishwasher in the living room before a neighbor spooked them. So they got out with the refrigerator, and the water heater, the stove oven, and the dishwasher were in the living room. And what happened? Sure enough, there was a big scratch down my hardwood floors where
Exactly.
they were dragging their stuff.
Exactly.
So
And the thing about it is too is I'm not down talking of any of the employees and stuff, but I would venture to say 90% of it, if the guys know what's in the house, maybe this guy's getting paid $10 an hour to hang drywall, and he sees $3,000 worth of equipment that he can make $1,000 off of. He doesn't have to go to work. I mean, he just made a week's worth of wages. That's it's a tough economy, guys. I mean, and depending on where you're investing in, that $1,000 could go a couple weeks, 3 weeks for a family. Then
yeah,
and it's just the sign of the times, and that's you
totally.
just have to watch out for it.
People will steal an AC unit, say $1,500,
Mhm.
maybe $2,000 that it costs us. They will go through the trouble. They will risk going to jail to steal that $1,500 AC units to maybe make $100 off the copper.
Off the copper on a brand new unit.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, the
boggles your
worst
mind.
thing that it does, and the worst thing that I have, and it sounds bad, the pool thing. I always have pool equipment stolen, and it bugs me to death because I don't insure my pool. There's no reason to, because I get everything at cost.
Yeah.
So what normally costs $1,100, I'll pay $500 for.
Yeah.
So so I mean, on these two houses, they both had pools, and what happened? All the equipment got stolen, and you can't keep a pool empty out here in Vegas, anywhere really.
Yeah.
Just the heat, it's going to blister the plaster. You're going to get spalling, you're going to get all kinds of stuff. So, and that's one thing you have to have up and running for insurance liability problems. If I have someone that's looking at the house and their kids are running in the backyard and they fall in an 8-foot pool that has no water in it, they're going to die. If they fall in an 8-foot pool an 8-foot pool that has water in it, they're going to get wet.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you have to look out for.
Sure. So the other thing too, and this is not necessarily something for you guys to watch out for, but just for you to know, I've had contractors or basically the subs and different people call me wanting me to file claims and complaining because their equipment got stolen. So if your contractor is dumb enough to leave his tools and things in a house overnight, and it gets broken into, and somebody steals their chop saw, and somebody steals their expensive equipment, that is something that you're not, technically not liable for. It's not your deal. That's what they have their insurance for. But they'll try to come after you for it. And if you don't know that you are not responsible for that, you'll get all weirded out and stressed out. And I had it happen to me on more than one occasion. I had somebody called me and say, hey, I had such and such a thing stolen. First of all, I'm sorry. Too bad. Like, don't do that anymore. And the other thing is just like you never know if maybe one of those guys, especially if you're not there, face to face, seeing the people, you don't know if one of those guys is trying to run a racket on you.
Absolutely.
They can tell you that I had my $4,000, whatever, laser level and chop saw and this and that all stolen last night and blah blah blah. It's like, man, I guess that's a good lesson for you, right? Like, how long have you been doing this? Don't do that anymore.
Did you lock the door? Did you lock the door when you left?
And obviously it depends on the neighborhood that you're in, but the reality is that anytime there's a house that's vacant, that's under renovation, it attracts people. And even in rich beach communities, unfortunately, you have your vagrants. you have your drug addicts that live on the street. I had one. I was telling Scott. I was walking. We parked. I was walking to the restaurant to meet for breakfast with the architect, and all of a sudden this lady just starts yelling at me from like 30, 40 yards away, telling me to, like, I don't know, you people, this and that and the other thing, and you know what I mean. So it doesn't matter. There's always a risk, regardless of the neighborhood that you're in. Obviously, if you're in some of the lower end, price property neighborhoods, I like putting alarms in because I learned the hard way too. I went one way, didn't have alarms, had stuff stolen. Put alarms in, all of a sudden my problems went away. So it's kind of like one of those things. It's like was it an inside job? Maybe,
You know,
probably.
well, and I've had that one time where I'm not. I know that you put alarms in. I don't. If I get a big shipment, like all my cabinets will come in, or I get a boatload of tile or hardwood or whatever comes in, is I'll pay one of the workers to spend the night there, as long as it can get locked up.
Yeah.
I mean, I pay guys $100 a night, and they bring in a hot plate. They think it's the best thing.
Yeah.
To make they can work in 115-degree weather for 8 hours and make $100, or they can sleep and make $100.
Yeah.
And they're not going. I mean, if they know that they're there, they're not going to let anybody come in.
Yeah.
And then the next day everything gets installed. So it's $100. It's my $100 insurance policy.
Sure.
That's what I call it. It's my $100
Sure.
insurance policy. That's
And
it.
I've gone as far as two things. I've gone as far as some cities, some places, depending on what the demographics are. I've paid retired cops. Some people, sometimes there's places where you got like these retired cops or retired military that put together these patrol teams, and so I've paid those guys to do that. It's not super effective, or at least in my experience, it wasn't super effective because they can only cover so much ground. So how many times a night are they going by your property? Who knows, right? I've gone as far as putting somebody with a dog in a house before. So these are all kind of extreme measures, right? But sometimes you just try and see what works.
Well, you just spent $12,000 to have a delivery of cabinets and tile. Is the $100 investment or the dog investment worth the $11, $12, $15,000 that you just put in there? That everyone knows, everyone on the block knows that you just
Oh yeah,
did a shipment.
everyone's
Everyone
paying attention.
knows. So it's not as though you did it stealth. You know that you just wrote a check for $15,000 and it's sitting in an empty, vacant house that nobody's in. It's just as simple.
Yeah. We have a comment. This is a cool webinar. I love the advice. I learned a lot. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Let's see. Well, for some reason, Wayne and Elizabeth still can't hear us, but we are recording this, so we'll be sure to send out the link to the webinar or to the podcast and everything afterwards. All right, guys, this is pretty much the end, right? So I'm going to open it up for some Q&A if you guys are still interested, but just give you out our links. c2crea.com, of course, is our main website. Facebook.com /C2C REIA is our main page. If you haven't been there, if you're on this webinar or you're listening to this podcast and we are not connected on Facebook yet, you can either go to facebook.com /Ivan Oberon, or just go to c2crea.com and find the connect with us page, and that way you can get all of our social media stuff, my social media, Scott's social media, everything else. You can email us if you have any other questions, you want to discuss some things, you're interested in mentorship, whatever it is. Ivan at c2crea.com and Scott at c2crea.com. That's with 2 T's. Just in case, I want to make sure that they because I don't know, sometimes people might spell Scott with 1 T.
That's the Gucci Scott.
Yes. So anyway, I'd like to open it up for some questions. Do you guys have any questions, any comments? Right now is the time. We would be happy to answer. Let's see, somebody's has his hand. All right, Mike's got his hand up. I'm going to unmute him. And here, Mike, I'm going to unmute you. so you can say your question live or comment. All right, you're
Great,
unmuted, Mike.
thanks.
How are you?
I'm awesome. How you guys doing?
We're
Great.
fantastic, man.
California.
Woo!
Awesome webinar.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
I know it's
What?
funny. Like other people's failures and mistakes is just like it makes for great entertainment.
Everyone's like, yeah, rock on.
Yeah.
We made
Well,
it a little bit long, so sorry for that.
no, that's all good. It's all good. I was just thinking here, and I'm going, okay, there is a lot that you're covering, and I was thinking, and one of the things I was thinking was, because you guys mentioned, maybe we'll do a webinar on how to handle people, and I was just thinking, when you're dealing with a realtor, when you're dealing with a homeowner, when you're dealing with a contractor, maybe just come up with a list of 10 of the most important questions to ask them in their responses so that it kind of gives you a direction, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are saying, hey, if they can't itemize the list, if they're not willing to give you an itemized list, do you even want to deal with them? Do you want to check them out? Obviously, they have to have a license, they have to have insurance, they have to be bonded or what have you.
Sure.
You know, I was thinking, do you go to, hey, let me go and see a project that you're working on?
Absolutely.
How many projects are you working on now? Scott, I had one of the guys come by to look at that property we've been talking about, and he goes, "Oh, I'm so busy." And I've probably had 6 or 7 people come by and look at that, and prices have been all over the place. And I think when they're busy, they give you a high number just to throw it out there, with my experience. And if they're not busy, then the number is a little bit more in line. What do you guys see?
Inevitably, that you hit the nail right on the head. If someone is so busy that they throw out a number that is more than the bids that you've been getting, that means that contractor, if you're willing to pay top price, he's willing to take you on. That's a plain excuse me. That's plain and simple. If he's coming in at 20,000, depending on the job, 20%, 30% more than your top bid, that means that contractor is busy, and that means one of two things. It means he's busy, and he threw out a number, and if you bite, he's going to do it, and he'll push things to the side, knowing that you're willing to pay.
Yeah, because that's the premium. He's getting the premium for it.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and that's one of the first questions that I always ask Scott and everyone else is, what's your workload like currently? Are you able to take on more work right now effectively? Like, how many jobs can you handle at once? Because that's a big problem.
Yeah, I also feel as though, and I know this happens, they bounce you. So, oh yeah, I can do your job, and it's like they're there for 2 days, they're gone for 3, they come back for 2, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing?
But Mike, here's the way to get around that. You have to have a closed-end contract. So and that's the key to it. If you deal with a contractor and he says, I am really busy, and you get a contract and he says that he's going to be finished by this date, and then there's penalties after that date, then yes, that's just going to keep him honest and keep him on a time frame. It doesn't matter if he's got 50 jobs going on. If he has the manpower to do the jobs, then that's fine. It's simple, like our contractor in Atlanta. I mean, he had, I think it was 10 jobs going when we decided, when we started talking with them and everything else. So as long as he can justify that we are still going to be in the schedule and the time frame that we needed, I don't care if he has 100 jobs going. That to me, that doesn't matter, and his numbers align with the other contractors. Once again, it's the relationship. If it starts out bad, it will never get better. So just know that.
Yeah. And I also had I had general contractors come by, and then I had individual like electricians come by, and I've reached out to a few different plumbers and so forth. Their pricing obviously was totally different than the general contractor.
Know this for everyone out there. If you get a general contractor on the job site, you're normally going to be paying about between 20 and 30% more than if you were to subcontract everything out by yourself.
Of course.
That's plain and simple. You have to pay that. You have to pay
you
that
gotta pay that
GC.
GC.
You have to pay him, and that's where his money's coming from. And the thing about this is I don't particularly like to use GCs, only because I know that I can get subcontractors to do the same thing. But since this was our first one in Atlanta, it's almost, you have to build a team, guys. You have to, you can do these remotely, but you need to get your feet wet first. You need to see what the lay of the land is. You need to see who the sharks are. You need to see who you can trust. And if your GC has good contractors that are working for him, and maybe he's just subcontracting them, you will get the lien releases and everything. So you will eventually get their names to go off of for your next job possibly. So that's, there's a whole bunch of tricks.
All right, great. Thanks guys, and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do a follow up. We'll put something together that'll be real nice. All right. Anybody else? Questions or comments? We're wrapped up here. We're about an hour and a half into it, so we really appreciate everybody who's stuck with us this whole time. It's dinner time for some of us, and some of you, I think it's bedtime. So thank you so much for being with us. Last call. If any question or comment you'd like to throw out there, either raise your hand and I will unmute you, or type it in the comment box. If not, be sure to connect with us again at our website, c2crea.com. You can find all of our information, all of our free resources, our webinars, our podcasts, our radio show, our different resources from some of our connections as far as books and articles and different things. There's a lot of great stuff there on our website. Thank you so much, guys. Be sure to tune in to Scott's webinar on Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific as well. And we'll be on in a week again here at Ivan Oberon's Money Matters. So thanks so much, guys. We'll catch you later. Thank you, Mr. Special Guest Scott Travis, the Hammer Extraordinaire. Love you, man.
Thank you.
And we'll be talking to you real soon, I bet. Probably, I'd be surprised if we didn't talk again tonight, but
this is going to be weird. This is going to be weird. I'm not going to see you. We've seen each other for the past 4 days. I mean, it's just going to be odd.
Right. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Go out there, decide what you want to do, make a plan, and then make sure that you create the action steps to work that plan and get yourselves to that next level. Get yourselves to that goal, whatever that goal is. The only way that your life gets better is when you get better. So get the education, get the resources, get the people around you that you need in order to make that happen. And until next time, you guys have a great night. Thanks so much.